In my family's solar system, my younger brother, Ethan, was the sun. He was a brilliant, blazing, celestial body, and my parents and all our relatives were merely planets, our lives reduced to a constant, happy orbit around his magnificent glow, and I, his older sister, was Pluto, a distant, forgotten dwarf planet, occasionally remembered with a vague, sentimental fondness, but mostly ignored. My own orbit too far out, too quiet, to be of any real interest. I learned early on that my birthday, which falls in mid-December, was less a celebration of my life and more of a minor, inconvenient prelude to the main event, the Christmas season, which was, of course, Ethan's favorite time of year. I remember my 16th birthday. My mother had baked a cake, and my friends were supposed to come over, but it was also the night of Ethan's big semi-final football game. The party was postponed. We ended up eating cake out of the box in the car on the way to the stadium. A single, sad candle flickering in the dark after he scored the winning touchdown. No one remembered my birthday at all. The entire weekend became a festival of praise for Ethan. My hero, my star. Have you ever been the supporting character in your own family, the one whose major life events are always an afterthought, a footnote to someone else's more important story? It's a strange and lonely feeling. If you know what it's like to be a background player, give this video a thumbs up, because I was about to get my final, most brutal lesson in being invisible. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me, they did, in their own quiet, distracted way. But their love for Ethan was a different thing entirely. It was a loud, performative, all-consuming adoration. He was everything they understood and valued. He was a charismatic, handsome sales executive for a major pharmaceutical company. He was a man of big deals, big bonuses, and big, flashy stories. He drove a Porsche. He wore expensive suits. He was a success. In a language my father, a retired sales director himself, could understand and admire. And then there was my life. I was a librarian, not just any librarian. A research librarian at the city's main university, a job I loved. A job that required a master's degree and a mind that could navigate the complex architecture of information. It was a quiet, intellectual, and deeply fulfilling life. To my parents, it was a profound disappointment. It was a nice, quiet job for a nice, quiet girl. And my husband, Tom, was, in their eyes, the living embodiment of my quiet, disappointing life. I love my husband. Tom is the calm, steady center of my world. He's a senior software engineer for a solid, respectable, but not particularly flashy, tech company. He is quiet where my brother is loud. He is thoughtful where my brother is impulsive. He is a man who would rather spend a weekend in his garden, his hands in the dirt, than at a loud, schmoozy networking event. He wears comfortable sweaters. He drives a sensible sedan. He reads thick history books for fun. To my family, he was the most boring man on the planet. He's a nice enough fellow, Lily, my father had said after meeting him for the first time. But does he have any drive? Any ambition? He seems so content. To my father, contentment was a fatal character flaw. My brother, Ethan, was more direct. So, you're marrying a guy who, what? Writes code in a basement all day, he'd ask me before our wedding. A look of genuine bewilderment on his face. God, Lily? You couldn't be more boring if you tried. They couldn't understand him. They couldn't understand us. Our quiet, happy life, built on shared books and long walks and comfortable silences, was a foreign country to them, a place with no landmarks they recognized. So, they mostly ignored it, and they mostly ignored me. My birthday became a recurring casualty of their benign neglect. My 21st was completely erased by the grand, week-long celebration of Ethan's college graduation. My 25th was overshadowed by a massive, last-minute surprise party they threw for Ethan to celebrate his first big promotion. A party I was expected to help plan and pay for, year after year. My special day was just a minor celestial event, completely eclipsed by the blazing sun that was my brother. But this year, I thought, would be different. This year, I was turning 30. It felt like a significant milestone, A real one, and all I wanted. The one gift I truly craved was a single evening where I was the sun, a quiet family dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant, where the conversation, just for a few hours, might actually revolve around me. I decided to be proactive. I called my mother a month in advance. "Mom," I'd said, my voice full of a hope I was trying to suppress. "My 30th is on Saturday the 14th. I was hoping we could all just go out for a quiet family dinner. No big party, just us. At La Trattoria." And to my absolute shock, she had agreed. "Oh, honey, of course," she'd said, her voice full of a warmth that seemed genuine. 30. That's a big one. We will absolutely be there. It will be your night. We'll make it special." I got off the phone feeling a dangerous, unfamiliar sense of optimism. Maybe they had finally changed. Maybe they finally saw me. Maybe, just maybe, my 30th birthday would actually be about me. I told Tom about the plan, and he, my dear, sensible Tom, was cautiously optimistic for me. "That sounds great, honey," he'd said, though I could see the protective skepticism in his eyes. He had been on the receiving end of my family's casual dismissiveness for years, and he had no illusions about them. But he saw how much it meant to me, so he just smiled and said, "I'll make the reservation." For the next few weeks, I lived on that hope. I bought a new dress. I looked forward to it with a kind of childlike excitement I hadn't felt in years. My night, a simple, quiet dinner, where I was the center of my family's attention. It was all I wanted. The first sign of trouble came a week before my birthday. It was a text from my mother. "Mom, hi sweetie, quick question. What do you think about having your birthday dinner at the Capitol Grill instead of that little Italian place? Much more festive." The Capitol Grill was my brother's favorite restaurant, a loud, expensive steakhouse where he would hold court with his clients. I texted her back, "Hi Mom. I really had my heart set on La Trattoria. It's my favorite." "Mom, okay. Dear, just a thought." Then, 2 days later, another text. "Mom, honey, Ethan was thinking of joining us for your birthday dinner, which is so sweet of him. He might bring a few of his colleagues from work. He says the Capitol Grill is much better for a larger group. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider?" My heart sank. It was starting, the slow, inevitable hijacking of my birthday. Mom, I really just wanted a small, quiet family dinner. Just the 5 of us. Please." "Mom, of course, dear. It's your day. We'll keep it small." But I knew the rot had set in. The gravitational pull of the sun was beginning to warp my small, quiet orbit. The final, fatal blow came the day before my birthday. It was a phone call from my father. His voice was full of a booming, cheerful excitement that had absolutely nothing to do with me. "Lily," he'd said, "great news. You are not going to believe what your brother just did. He landed the massive Johnson account, the biggest deal of his career. The commission alone is going to be almost $500,000. We are all so unbelievably proud." "Wow, Dad," I said, my voice flat. "That's great." "It's more than great. It's monumental," he boomed. "We have to celebrate your mother, and I have decided. We're throwing him a surprise party to celebrate his promotion, and we're having it tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, my 30th birthday." The silence on my end of the phone was a cold, dead thing. "Lily, are you there?" "Yes, Dad," I whispered. "I'm here. Tomorrow night is my birthday, remember? We had plans to go to La Trattoria." "Oh, right," he said, as if just remembering a trivial detail. "Well, this is much more important. This is a major career achievement. You can celebrate your little birthday another time. Your brother needs our support right now. The whole family needs to be there for him. We've booked the private room at the Capitol Grill. Be there at 7. And don't tell Ethan. It's a surprise." And he hung up. Just like that, my 30th birthday, my one requested night, was not just overshadowed, it was canceled, erased, replaced by a more important celebration for a more important child. I stood in my kitchen, my phone in my hand, and I felt a familiar, heartbreaking sense of resignation wash over me. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just tired of fighting for a sliver of the attention that was given to my brother so freely, so endlessly. I had a choice. I could throw a fit. I could refuse to go. I could cause a massive family fight. Or I could do what I had always done. I could be the good, quiet, supportive daughter. I could swallow my own disappointment, put on a nice dress, and go and watch my family celebrate my brother on my own birthday. I was so tired of fighting, so I chose to be quiet. But I had no idea that my quiet, long-suffering husband had finally, after 5 years of watching me be dismissed, decided that he was tired of being quiet, too. And his plan for my birthday was a little bigger than a quiet dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. The morning of my 30th birthday dawned gray and silent. I woke up with a familiar, hollow ache in my chest, the ache of anticipated disappointment for a few foolish moments. I lay in bed and allowed myself to hope. Maybe today will be different. Maybe they remembered. I checked my phone. There were a few happy birthday texts from my friends. But from my family, my mother, my father, my brother, there was nothing. Just a single, chipper text from my mom that had come in late the night before. Mom, don't forget. Capitol Grill at 7 sharp and don't tell Ethan. So exciting. The winky face emoji was like a tiny digital slap in the face. My 30th birthday. A milestone I had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure, had been officially, cheerfully, and completely erased, replaced by a surprise party for my brother's promotion. I was 30 years old, and my own family had forgotten I existed. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring into a cold cup of coffee, when my husband, Tom, came into the room. He was already dressed for work, but he was holding a small, clumsily wrapped present in his hands. "Happy birthday, my love," he said softly. Placing the gift in front of me, he kissed the top of my head. His movements were, as always, quiet, calm, and deliberate. I looked at him, my wonderful, steady, and in the eyes of my family, profoundly boring husband. And a wave of love so fierce it almost made me cry washed over me. He was the one person in my life who never forgot, who always saw me. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick. "Go on, open it," he said with a small, gentle smile. I unwrapped the gift. It was a beautiful, leather-bound, first edition copy of my favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird. It was a thoughtful, deeply personal gift that showed he knew me, that he listened to me. It was worth more to me than all the Porsches and Rolexes in my brother's world. "It's beautiful, Tom," I said, my eyes filling with tears. "Thank you. This isn't your real present, you know," he said, his voice quiet but with a strange, new note of confidence in it. I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "This is just for this morning," he said. "Your real celebration is tomorrow night. I've taken care of everything. Just keep tomorrow evening free. And wear something comfortable." Tomorrow night, I asked, "What are you planning?" He just smiled his quiet, mysterious smile. "It's a surprise," he said. "Just trust me, Lily. Let your family have their show tonight. But tomorrow is for you." His quiet confidence was a strange, intriguing puzzle, a tiny spark of light in what I knew was going to be a very dark day. But I held on to it. It was the only thing I had. That evening, I put on my new dress, the one I had bought to celebrate my own birthday, and I went to celebrate my brother. The private room at the Capitol Grill was an explosion of testosterone and self-congratulation. It was a sea of dark suits and loud, booming laughter. A massive banner hung over the bar, reading, "Congratulations, Ethan, king of the deal." My mother had even had cocktail napkins printed with his smiling, smug face on them. It was a shrine to his success. My parents greeted me at the door, their faces flushed with excitement. "Lily, you made it," my father said, giving me a quick, distracted hug. "Isn't this fantastic?" My son, a vice president at 32. "Happy birthday, dear," my mother whispered in my ear as she hugged me. A perfunctory, almost apologetic gesture, before she immediately turned to greet one of her friends. My milestone birthday had been reduced to a whispered afterthought. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, and the room erupted as we all shouted, "Surprise!" He performed his shock and delight with the skill of a seasoned actor, his face a mask of humble disbelief. He was a star, and this was his opening night. I spent the next 2 hours as a ghost at the feast. I stood at the edge of conversations, smiling and nodding, while people I had known my whole life talked about Ethan, toasted to Ethan, and recounted legendary stories of Ethan's greatness. Not a single person mentioned that it was my 30th birthday. I was not just invisible. I had been rendered completely non-existent. My husband, Tom, was a quiet, watchful presence by my side. He didn't say much. He just observed, his calm face a mask I couldn't quite read. He watched my parents fawn over my brother. He watched my brother soak in the adoration, and I saw a new look in his eyes. A look I had never seen before. It was a cold, quiet, and deeply analytical expression. He wasn't just my sad, sympathetic husband. He was a scientist, observing a foreign species in its natural habitat. The toasts were the hardest part. My father stood up, his chest puffed out with pride. He gave a long, rambling 5-minute speech about Ethan's unshakable drive, his natural charisma, his killer instinct. He recounted Ethan's entire life story, from his first touchdown in Pee Wee football to this, his greatest corporate victory. To my son, Ethan, he finished, his voice booming, a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go out and get it, who carries the family ambition. We are so proud. They all raised their glasses. To Ethan, I had to raise my glass, too. I had to toast my brother's ambition on the night of my own forgotten birthday. The expensive champagne tasted like ash in my mouth. Then my mother stood up, her eyes shining with tears of joy. She spoke of his kind heart, of his generosity. She told a story about how, just last month, he had taken time out of his busy schedule to help her pick out a new car, a top-of-the-line Lexus. He has always been such a good, thoughtful son. She wept. I had to clench my fists under the table to keep from screaming. I knew for a fact that he hadn't just helped her pick out the car. He had let her pay for the entire thing. A loan he would never repay. His generosity was a myth, funded by my parents' own gullibility. Through it all, I kept smiling, the polite, pleasant, invisible daughter smile that I had perfected over a lifetime. Inside, I was crumbling. The casual, thoughtless cruelty of it all was a physical weight. It wasn't that they had just forgotten. It was that it had never even occurred to them to remember. My own 30th birthday was not even a blip on the radar of their lives, completely eclipsed by the dazzling, all-consuming sun of my brother's success. The final insult came with their gift. After the toasts, my mother and father presented Ethan with a long, flat, velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a ridiculously expensive, diamond-encrusted Rolex watch. A man of your stature needs to look the part, son, my father boomed as Ethan strapped the glittering monstrosity to his wrist. Ethan held up his arm, admiring the watch. Wow, he said, I'm speechless. Thank you. I thought of the small, simple, leather-bound book that Tom had given me that morning, a gift that showed he had listened to me, that he knew me, and I looked at the giant, flashy, transactional gift they had given my brother, a gift that showed they didn't know him at all, they only knew his success. As the party was winding down, I felt a hand on my arm. It was my mother. I'm sorry we couldn't do your little dinner tonight, honey, she said, her voice a low, confidential whisper. But you understand, don't you? This was just so much more important. And that was it. That was the line that finally broke me. More important. I just nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I turned and found Tom. I want to go home, I whispered. He just nodded, his eyes full of a quiet, simmering anger that was entirely on my behalf. He took my hand, and we left without saying goodbye to anyone. I held it together until we got to the car, but the moment the door closed, shutting out the sounds of my brother's celebration, I finally, completely, fell apart. The tears I had been holding back all night came in a hot, silent, shuddering wave. The full weight of a lifetime of being overlooked, of being second best, of being forgotten, just crashed down on me. Tom didn't say anything. He just pulled me close, letting me sob into the shoulder of his simple, boring wool coat. He let me cry until the tears were all gone, until all that was left was a hollow, aching emptiness. He started the car and began to drive home in silence. He just held my hand, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on my knuckles. Finally, as we pulled onto our quiet street, he looked at me, his face illuminated by the passing streetlights. I know, he said softly. It's okay. Just wait until tomorrow. His voice was full of a strange, quiet confidence, a certainty that was a complete mystery to me. I was a forgotten daughter, the wife of a boring man, a woman whose 30th birthday had been a non-event. I had no idea that my boring, quiet husband was about to give me a birthday present so loud, so spectacular, and so full of love that it would be heard all over the world. I woke up on the morning of my 30th birthday plus one day feeling like I had a hangover, but not from alcohol. It was a humiliation hangover, a deep, aching, bruised feeling in my soul. The events of the previous night, the lavish party for my brother, the gushing toast to his success, the complete and utter erasure of my own milestone birthday played on a loop in my head. I felt raw, exposed, and profoundly, deeply insignificant. My husband, Tom, was already up. I found him in the kitchen, not on his laptop as he usually was, but standing at the stove, making pancakes, my favorite. He had put a small single daisy in a bud vase on the kitchen table. He looked up when I walked in, and his eyes were full of a quiet, fierce tenderness. "Good morning, birthday girl." "Day 2?" he said softly. I tried to smile, but I felt my lower lip tremble. "Don't," I whispered. "Let's just not talk about it." "Okay," he said, nodding as he expertly flipped a pancake. "We won't talk about it, but we are going to celebrate it, properly." He slid a plate of perfectly golden brown pancakes in front of me. "But first, breakfast. And then I have some rules for today." "Rules?" I asked, managing a weak smile. My quiet, go-with-the-flow husband was not a man of rules. "Rule number 1, he said, sitting down across from me. "No talking about your family. No thinking about your family. Today. They do not exist. Today is a family-free zone." He looked at me, his expression serious. "I mean it, Lily. We are putting them in a locked box, and we are not opening it until tomorrow." "Okay," I agreed, a small weight lifting from my chest. "Rule number 2, he continued. You are not allowed to feel guilty, or sad, or like you are not worth celebrating. Today is the official first day of your 30th year on this planet, and that is a momentous occasion that deserves to be honored." "And rule number 3, I asked, starting to feel a little better. "Rule number 3, he said, a strange secret smile playing on his lips, "is that you need to be ready to go out at 6 o'clock tonight, and you need to wear something comfortable. Jeans, a sweater, no fancy dresses." I was confused. Jeans. "Where are we going?" "A hike." "It's a surprise," he said. "You've just got to trust me." I spent the rest of the day in a strange, contemplative haze. Tom went to his home office to work, and I puttered around the house, trying to obey his rules. I tried not to think about my family, but it was hard. The humiliation of the night before was a fresh wound. To be so thoroughly and casually dismissed by the people who were supposed to love you most, it leaves a mark. I found myself speculating about Tom's surprise. His idea of a big romantic gesture was usually something quiet and thoughtful. A picnic by the lake, a long drive through the countryside to a small hidden bookstore he'd found, a home-cooked meal of all my favorite foods. I figured it would be something similar, a nice, quiet dinner at a casual brew pub. Maybe something to take my mind off things. I appreciated the effort more than I could say, but a small, sad part of me couldn't help but contrast his sweet, simple plans with the grand, opulent gesture my parents had made for my brother. They had rented out the most expensive steakhouse in the city for him. They had given him a Rolex. My birthday celebration would be a quiet dinner in jeans. It felt, as always, like I was living on a smaller, quieter, less important scale. At 6 o'clock sharp, I was ready. I was wearing my favorite pair of jeans and a cozy cashmere sweater. Tom came out of his office, looking relaxed and happy. "Ready to go, birthday girl?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. We got into his sensible, reliable, and, according to my father, deeply boring sedan. He didn't turn in the direction of the town's restaurant district. Instead, he got on the highway, heading downtown towards the city center. "Where are we going?" I asked, my curiosity finally getting the better of me. He just smiled and put a hand on my knee. "Rule number 4, he said, "no questions." We drove for 30 minutes, the city skyline growing closer. He took the exit for the sports complex, the massive area of the city that housed the professional football stadium and the baseball park. My confusion deepened. "Tom, Are we going to a game? I asked. I didn't think anyone was playing tonight. No game tonight, he said, his smile growing wider. He bypassed the entrance for the baseball park and continued towards the massive, looming structure of the pro football stadium, our city's pride and joy. A 70,000-seat behemoth of steel and glass, where heroes were made on Sunday afternoons. But tonight, on a Sunday night in December, it was dark, silent, completely deserted. He pulled up to a private, unmarked service entrance, a large rolling metal gate. He rolled down his window and spoke into a small, discreet intercom. Tom Johnson for the evening event. He said. A buzzer sounded, and the massive gate began to slide open. My jaw dropped. Tom, what is going on? I asked, my voice a whisper. How did you do that? Just a little phone call, he said casually, as he drove our sensible sedan into the dark, cavernous underbelly of the stadium. We parked in a reserved spot that had a small plaque on it that read Team Owner. I just stared at him. He grinned, got out of the car, and opened my door. Come on, he said. The party's this way. He led me through a series of silent, concrete corridors. The air was cool and smelled of popcorn and old beer. Our footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness. It was eerie, walking through a place I had only ever seen filled with the roar of tens of thousands of people. We passed the locker rooms, the training facilities. It felt like we were in a secret, sleeping city. Finally, we came to a large tunnel, the one the players used to run out onto the field. At the end of the tunnel, I could see a single, bright, focused circle of light. Close your eyes, Tom said softly. What, why? Just for a second. Trust me. I closed my eyes. I felt him take my hand. His familiar, warm grip a grounding presence in this surreal dream. He led me forward, my footsteps uncertain on the strange, springy turf. Okay, he said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast, open space. You can open them now. I opened my eyes, and the breath left my body in a single, sharp gasp. We were standing on the 50-yard line, in the very center of the massive, silent, and completely empty football stadium. The stands rose up around us like a colossal, sleeping beast, a dark canyon of empty seats under the night sky. The only light was a single, powerful spotlight from above, illuminating a small, perfect circle of impossibly green grass. And in the center of that circle of light was a small, round table, draped in a crisp white linen tablecloth. It was set for two. There were 2 chairs, a single flickering candle, and a bottle of champagne chilling in a polished silver bucket. It was the most insane, most romantic, most ridiculously, beautifully impossible thing I had ever seen. I turned to my husband, my quiet, sensible, boring husband, my mind unable to form a coherent thought. Tom, I whispered. The name a question, a statement of disbelief, everything all at once. What is this? How is this even possible? My brain could not process what I was seeing. A private dinner for 2 in the middle of a 70,000-seat NFL stadium. My husband, the man my father thought had no ambition, had just pulled off the most wildly ambitious, most outrageously grand romantic gesture I had ever even heard of. He just smiled his calm, gentle smile. He walked me over to the table, pulled out my chair, and waited for me to sit down, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Happy 30th birthday, Lily, he said, his eyes shining with a love so profound it made my heart ache. I told you I had a surprise for you. I just stared at him, speechless, but how? I'll explain later, he said, popping the cork on the champagne, the sound echoing in the vast, silent stadium. He poured 2 glasses. For now. Let's just enjoy the evening. It's your night, the real one. He handed me a glass. I took it, my fingers trembling. The world felt like it had tilted on its axis. But this isn't even the main event, he added, a mischievous glint in his eye. I stared at him. The main event, Tom. What could possibly be bigger than this? He just smiled, raised his glass, and looked past me, towards the far end of the stadium, which was still shrouded in darkness. To the birthday girl, he said, his voice full of a love and a pride that I had been starving for my entire life. The evening is just getting started. And as he spoke, a new set of lights, 100 of them, suddenly flashed on at the far end of the field. illuminating a massive concert stage that I hadn't even seen was there. As I sat there at that small, solitary table in the middle of a vast, silent football stadium, my mind struggled to catch up with reality. A private dinner on the 50-yard line was already a gesture so grand, so far outside the realm of my experience, that it felt like a dream. I stared at my quiet, sensible husband, trying to reconcile the man I knew with the man who had somehow orchestrated this impossible moment. And then he said, "This isn't even the main event." Before I could even form a question, the world exploded in light. A bank of massive floodlights at the far end of the stadium flashed on, bathing a colossal stage in a brilliant, electric white light. It was a full concert stage, complete with a drum kit, stacks of amplifiers, and a row of guitars standing at attention in their racks. It was a stage built for rock stars, for legends. And as I watched, my champagne glass frozen halfway to my lips, figures began to walk out from the wings and onto that stage. My brain stuttered. It was them. It couldn't be them, but it was. It was the Wandering Echoes, my favorite band in the entire world. An indie rock band from Austin whose melancholic, literate, and beautiful songs had been the soundtrack to my entire adult life. I had seen them a dozen times, always in small, crowded clubs, singing along with every word from the back of the room. They were my secret heroes, and they were standing on a stage, in an empty stadium, seemingly just for me. The lead singer, a man whose lyrics I knew better than I knew my own heart, walked up to the microphone. He looked out into the vast, dark emptiness of the 70,000-seat stadium, and his eyes seemed to find the single, small pool of light where I was sitting. "Good evening," he said, his familiar, gravelly voice echoing slightly in the immense space. "This is a strange one for us, but a special one." He gave a small, wry smile. "This is for a woman named Lily, who I'm told is a very big fan, and who is also celebrating a very happy 30th birthday. So, Lily, this is for you." And then I heard the opening chords, the familiar, haunting, 3-chord progression of my favorite song, Northern Sky, a song about finding hope in the middle of a cold, dark winter. The sound that filled that empty stadium was the purest, most beautiful, most powerful thing I had ever heard. The drums kicked in, the bass line rumbled through the very ground I was sitting on, and the singer's voice, raw and full of a heartbreaking beauty, soared up into the night sky, and I just broke. The tears I had been holding back since the night before. The tears of humiliation, of being forgotten, of feeling so utterly small and insignificant. They all came pouring out, but they were not tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of a joy so profound, so overwhelming. It was a physical force. I sat there at my private table for two, in my own private stadium, and I cried as my favorite band in the world played my favorite song, just for me. After the song ended, the silence that followed was just as profound. I turned to my husband, my face a mess of tears and mascara, my mind a complete and total blank. "Tom," I whispered, the name a single, massive question mark. How is this possible? This must have cost a fortune. This is insane." He just smiled his calm, steady smile. He reached across the table and took my hand. "Well," he said, his voice quiet and gentle, "that's kind of the other part of your birthday present. There's something I probably should have told you a while ago." He took a deep breath. "You know that tech company I work for, Datacore Analytics?" "Of course," I said, the solid, respectable, and, in my father's eyes, deeply boring company where he had worked as a senior software engineer for the past 8 years. "Well," he said, a sheepish look on his face, "I don't just work there. I started it, in my dorm room, with 2 of my friends from college." I just stared at him. "It was just a small project at first," he continued, his voice still quiet, still humble. "A better way to analyze data sets. We worked on it for years, just the 3 of us, out of my garage. We never took any venture capital. We just slowly built it. And then, about 4 years ago, one of the big tech giants tried to buy us out. We said no, so we decided to go public instead. He took a sip of his champagne, as if he were recounting a mildly interesting story about his weekend gardening project. "It went better than we expected," he said with a shrug. "A lot better. My two partners, they both retired, bought yachts, and moved to the Caribbean. But I didn't want that. I love my job. I love the work. I love writing code. So I just stayed on. As a senior engineer, I didn't want to be the CEO. I didn't want the meetings, the press conferences, the headaches. I just wanted to do the work. My mind was reeling. I was trying to connect the man I knew, the quiet man who wore comfortable sweaters, who grew his own tomatoes, who drove a sensible sedan, with the man he was describing, the co-founder of one of the city's most successful public tech companies, a man who was. I was beginning to realize, with a sense of dizzying, world-altering shock, secretly, profoundly, and unbelievably wealthy. "But why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Your car, our house, your life." "Because I love our life, Lily," he said, and his eyes were full of a sincere, desperate honesty. "I love our small house. I love my sensible car. I love that you fell in love with Tom Johnson, the boring software engineer, and not Tom Johnson, the co-founder of a multi-billion-dollar company." He looked at me, his grip on my hand tightening. "I saw your family, Lily, from the very beginning. I saw how they are, how obsessed they are with money, with status, with flashy things. I saw how they treated you, how they dismissed you because you chose a life of passion instead of a life of profit. And I swore to myself that I would never, ever let that kind of poison into our life together. I didn't want their world. I wanted our world, this world, the one we built." The pieces of the last 5 years of my life began to click into place, forming a new, brilliant, and unbelievable picture. His quietness wasn't a lack of ambition. It was a conscious, deliberate choice. His boring life wasn't a sign of failure. It was a shield he had built around us, to protect our love from the very values my family worshipped. I gestured around at the vast, empty stadium, at the concert stage, at the impossible, beautiful scene. "This isn't you." "No," he said, shaking his head. "This isn't me at all. This is just a tool. It's money. It's a resource. And I am using it tonight to do the one thing that money is actually good for, to show the person I love most in the entire world how I see them." He looked me directly in the eye, his voice full of a passion I had never heard from him before. "Your family made you feel invisible on your own birthday, Lily. So I decided to make you the only person in the room. Your father thinks my ambition is small, so I decided to show him what my ambition is really for. My ambition is for you. It always has been." On the stage, the band began to play again, another one of my favorite songs, a quiet, acoustic ballad about a love that is a safe harbor in a storm. And I looked at my husband, my quiet, steady, sensible, and secretly magnificent husband, and I saw him for the first time. I had spent years defending him to my family, trying to get them to see his worth, but I realized, with a sense of profound, humbling shame, that even I hadn't truly seen it. I had, in some small, secret part of my heart, bought into their narrative. I had loved him, but I had also seen him as simple, as boring. I had been so wrong. His was not a small life. It was a life of profound, quiet, and deeply principled strength. He was the sanest, strongest, and most ambitious man I had ever known. His ambition just wasn't for a bigger car or a fancier title. It was for a life of integrity, of peace, of love, a life with me. The tears started again, but they were a new kind of tears. They were tears of awe, of gratitude, of a love so deep and so profound it felt as big as the empty stadium around us. I stood up, walked around the small table, and I threw my arms around my husband's neck. "I love you," I whispered into his ear. "I love you so much." "Happy birthday, my love," he whispered back, holding me tight as my favorite band in the world played a private concert for us, for an audience of 2, under the stars. The final chord of Northern Sky echoed through the vast, empty stadium and then faded into a perfect, profound silence. The stage lights dimmed, leaving just the single, soft spotlight on our small table for 2. The band gave a small, collective bow to their audience of 1. And then they quietly walked off the stage, leaving me and my husband alone under the vast, starry December sky. I sat there, my champagne untouched, my mind a quiet, humming landscape of aftershocks. The man I had married, the man I thought I knew so well, was a stranger. A wonderful, magnificent, and utterly unbelievable stranger. He had seen me at my lowest, most invisible point, and he had responded not with pity, but with a gesture of love so grand, so outrageously theatrical. It had literally rewritten the stars for me. So, I said finally, my voice a whisper in the immense quiet, co-founder of Datacore Analytics. He had the grace to look a little sheepish. I didn't want it to be a thing, he said with a shrug. I just wanted to be Tom, the guy who loves you, not Tom. The guy with the stock options. My father called you unambitious, I said. A hysterical little laugh bubbling up. My brother called you boring. I know, he said, his smile gentle. And I always took it as a compliment, because their definition of ambition is a world I want no part of. My ambition was never for a bigger car or a corner office, Lily. My ambition was for a quiet life. With you. We didn't talk much more that night. We didn't need to. We just sat there, holding hands, while a team of caterers served us a beautiful meal under the single spotlight. We ate, we drank champagne, and we listened to the quiet hum of our new reality. As we drove home in his sensible, boring sedan, I laid my head on his shoulder. The car didn't feel boring anymore. It felt like the safest, most wonderful place in the world. The story, of course, broke. A story that good, that cinematic, is impossible to keep secret. Someone on the stadium's event staff, or someone in the band's road crew, talked, and by Monday morning, it was the talk of the city. A local gossip blog was the first to run with it. The headline was spectacular. Local tech millionaire rents NFL stadium for wife's birthday. Flies in favorite band for private concert. The article detailed the whole, insane story, citing sources close to the event. It named the band, it named the stadium, and it named my husband, Tom Johnson, the quiet, unassuming co-founder and major shareholder of the publicly traded Datacore Analytics. And of course, it named me. The story then went viral. It was picked up by national news outlets, by morning talk shows. It was the ultimate feel-good fairy tale romance story. It had everything a secret millionaire, a grand romantic gesture, a rock band. And then, the other half of the story came out. A friend of a friend who had been at Ethan's promotion party apparently spoke to a reporter, and a new, even more delicious detail was added to the narrative. The story wasn't just about a grand gesture. It was about a grand gesture made in response to a terrible slight. The headlines shifted. Why did a tech millionaire rent a stadium for his wife because her family forgot? Her 30th birthday. My family's casual cruelty was now a central plot point in a national news story. The narrative was no longer mine to control, but for the first time, the story being told was the truth. The phone calls, as I knew they would, began on Tuesday morning. My family, who hadn't bothered to call me on my actual birthday, were now my most dedicated, most frantic correspondents. My father was first. His booming, confident voice was gone, replaced by a strange, high-pitched, fawning tone I had never heard before. "Lily," he'd shouted into the phone. "My girl, I just saw an article online. My goodness, Tom, that quiet son of a gun who knew a secret genius. You have to tell me, what's his company's stock symbol? I'd love to take a look at their financials." He wasn't proud. He wasn't apologetic. He was just immediately, shamelessly, looking for an angle. "Dad," I said, my voice cool and calm. "Tom's finances are our private business." Of course, he'd said quickly. "But we're family. We have to celebrate this, I'm telling you. This changes everything." "No, Dad," I said quietly. "It doesn't change anything at all." And I hung up. My mother's call was next. It was all about the social implications. "Lily? Darling. The phone has been ringing off the hook. Everyone at the country club is talking. My friend Susan, her husband is on the board of the museum. She says they would love to have you and Tom as the honorary chairs for their next gala. Isn't it wonderful? We must have you both over for dinner immediately. We have so much to celebrate. She had completely, conveniently, forgotten that the last time I had been in her home, my birthday had been erased, now that I was the wife of a man they deemed important. I was suddenly worth celebrating. We're a little busy right now, Mom, I'd said politely. But thank you for thinking of us. The most pathetic call, of course, was from my brother, Ethan, the son, the king of the deal. His voice was a strange mixture of disbelief, envy, and a desperate, clumsy attempt to get back on my good side. Sis, he'd said, his voice full of a false, hearty camaraderie. I can't believe it, Tom. Who would have thought the guy is a legend, an absolute legend? Hey, so listen, I've got this great new sales strategy I'm working on. And I was thinking, with Tom's connections in the tech world. I cut him off. Ethan, I said, my voice flat. Don't what? Just don't, I said. I have to go. I hung up on him. 2. It was a strange and empowering feeling. For my entire life, I had been a satellite in their orbit. But the laws of physics in our family had now changed. The quiet, boring man they had dismissed had been revealed to be a secret sun, a star 1,000 times brighter than their own. And I was his planet. They had no more gravitational pull on me. A year has passed. Our life, on the surface, has not changed much. We still live in our small, comfortable house. Tom still drives his sensible sedan. He still finds his greatest joy in his garden. The money, the ridiculous, astronomical amount of it, has not changed who we are. It has just changed what we are able to do. It has given us freedom. I quit my job at the university library 6 months ago. The books are still my passion, but I wanted to build something of my own, with a small fraction of our new resources. I bought a beautiful old building downtown, and I opened an independent bookstore. It's called The Next Chapter. It's a quiet, beautiful space, with comfortable armchairs, a small cafe, and of course, a massive section on history. It's my sanctuary. It's a place for the quiet people, for the readers, for the dreamers. And it is the most fulfilling work I have ever done. Tom, for his part, has used his own resources to start a foundation. It provides scholarships and technology grants to children in low-income school districts, giving them access to the kind of education and opportunities that he knew were so crucial. He is a quiet philanthropist, his name never in the headlines. His work done without fanfare. He is still the same good, decent man I married. He just has a bigger garden to tend now. My relationship with my family is distant, and it is on my terms. They still call, of course. They still try to ingratiate themselves, but the power dynamic has been permanently altered. They no longer see me as the quiet, disappointing daughter. They see me as the gatekeeper to the man they are now desperate to know. Their approval is a currency I am no longer interested in, and my time is a resource I now give out very, very sparingly. I have come to realize that my father's definition of success, of ambition, was a hollow and fragile thing. It was all about noise, about flash, about the external validation of the world. He was so blinded by the brilliant, noisy glow of my brother that he couldn't see the quiet, immense, and steady light of my husband, a man who had built an empire while wearing a comfortable sweater. And the greatest gift Tom ever gave me was not the stadium, or the band, or the money. It was that he saw me when no one else was looking. He valued my quiet world. He loved me for exactly who I was, not for who my family wanted me to be. His grand, spectacular gesture wasn't about showing off his wealth. It was about using his power to reflect my own worth back at me, so loudly and so brilliantly that even I, after a lifetime of feeling invisible, could finally see it. So, thank you for listening. If you've ever felt overlooked or underestimated, or like the quiet one in a room full of loud people, I see you. Your worth is not determined by the volume of your voice, but by the depth of your character. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of the quiet ones. And remember to appreciate the boring people in your life. They might just be the ones who are secretly planning to rent you a stadium.